as an economic think tank, I think it's important to put things in an economic perspective. I think the basis we all worked from today is that the old economic rules do not apply, do not work anymore, and therefore that fiscal rules, the old fiscal rules, don't really work. They're really cracking, and we all realize that we have to adapt that. I will not go through the detail, but just on the general concept. And I think this is so important that we have to bear it in mind, because it's the foundation of everything we do. Of course, there are many technical details, but we always have to keep in mind the economic dimension. Second point is that I think we're pretty lucky to have a number of very significant institutions that have taken that task and that issue at heart. Obviously, we cannot avoid mentioning the OECD. We had David Bradbury speaking to us this morning, and it was a big privilege. But obviously what the OECD has been doing for the past, I'll call it 10 years, but I'm probably under the reality, is essential and is very much the foundation of many, many things that we've been discussing for the rest of the day. And obviously, European Commission and the European Parliament have been key, are key, and we're talking about major institutions here. And this is essential to see established major institutions saying we have to change the rules, which is not natural. After all, very large institutions usually say, hey, we have rules, we're here to protect them. If you want to abide by the rules, you're not going to be the good guys. Now we have major institutions saying we have to change the rules, so that's very essential. The 4 stars of the day have been BEPS, CCCTB, European Commission to tax revenues of the interim measure to tax revenues of digital companies, and obviously the proposal, the more comprehensive, to tax profits of digital companies. My takeaway on CCTB is that we have a big debate on 2 Cs or 3 Cs. We've heard businesses broadly saying, if you don't do 3 Cs, if you don't consolidate, we don't like it. There's been a few nuances, but it's been the major theme. We know there is a counter view. We just heard Commissioner Moscovici say, we want to consolidate. And obviously, the rapporteur, Alain Lamassoure, was very much in favor of it. And I think that's a very major takeaway from the day, hearing the commissioner say, look, we want to consolidate. It's essential. Another dimension that was raised, which in my view was essential, was the threshold issue. Are we creating unnecessary competition between companies of different sizes by introducing sort of artificial thresholds, or are those thresholds not artificial? I'm not taking the debate again, just to reassure you, but to me, having listened very carefully to everybody today, I think we have to go much further on the reflection on this particular topic. Another important point that was said by Commissioner Moscovici a minute ago was that a proposal by the Commission is not a take it or leave it. So let's feed the debate. Whether, I'm not here to speak on behalf of Confrontation Europe, but I think we're close enough and friendly enough to know that both Confrontation Europe and Institut Friedland have a mission to feed the debate. That's, if we have one pretension, that's the one we have. We don't have all the solutions, we try to think, but we're here to feed the debate. So let's feed the debate, to work with the European Commission, with the European Parliament, with the OECD on, do we need thresholds? Yes, no, how? And the debate is not finished on that particular point. Another debate that needs to be fed further, I feel, and we only touched upon today, is the relationship between the Commission's proposals to tax profits of the digital industry and CCTB. Gaëtan spoke about that, but obviously we didn't have time to go very deep into the debate. And here again, let's feed the debate. Let's all contribute. Very, very last word, and I will take what Stéphane Pallez said, which I found extremely interesting on the possibility to tax revenues for the so-called digitax. And I think Stéphane Pallez made a very important point when she said, look, we're facing companies that essentially make no profit or very little profit, and despite that fact, they are huge companies. I think she mentioned Amazon, if I'm correct. And if you look, and it's interesting because at Institut Friedland we published a paper on that particular topic, not from the angle of taxation, but from the angle of the relationship between stock valuation and monopoly. And effectively what we're seeing today is very large companies that make no or little profits and that are worth an incredible amount of money. And what's interesting behind that is not to say, oh, it's a lot of money. Yes, it's a lot of money. But if you take the example of Amazon, given the profit they make, which is not quite 3 billion, if they were a normal company, they would be worth between 40 and 90 billion, give or take, whether you value them at 13 times their profits or 30 times their profit, depending on growth potential and everything. They're worth $750 billion. So it's just not the same order of magnitude. It's like 10 times more than what you would expect. They're trading at close to 300 times their results. So what does that tell us? Behind a stock price, we have a story. And what's the story? What story do they tell us? Well, basically, the story they tell us is that the stock price, well, investors believe that they're going to become a monopoly. And they also believe that competition authorities will not react. That's really what the stock price is telling us today. And if that is true, then there is really a case for taxing revenues and not profits. Because at one point, we're all going to be paying for that. Because if you want that valuation on the stock market to be justified one day, well, the monopoly will translate into much higher prices. And if that doesn't happen, then investors will lose a lot of money. So it's interesting. I started with different economic rules implying different fiscal rules. But if you relate that with the value on the stock market, it's another argument to think, hey, maybe we need to think differently about taxation. I'm not affirming anything here. All I'm doing is raising questions as economists should do, and that's what I try to do. I want to thank you very much for this extremely interesting and fruitful day. Thank you for your participation. We hope to see you again in future events we'll be organizing, whether here in Brussels or in other capitals of Europe. Thank you very much.